Crystal Stokes here with Get Stoked, a podcast with real and raw conversations with leaders of all types, business owners, managers, executives, and more. Get stoked by their honest and insightful stories and key takeaways that you can use to improve your leadership abilities. Now, if you find this podcast helpful, please subscribe and share it with others. Your support and feedback really makes a difference. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hey, everybody. Crystal Stokes here with Sheera Bursch. Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Thank you. And we're here to talk about leadership today. I'm going to pass her the mic and let her introduce herself. So Sheera, tell us who you are and why you're here today.
Oh, hey there. I'm Sheera. I'm the operations director for Baxter Veterinary Clinic, which is a 6-doctor small animal practice in South Carolina. And we're here to talk about leadership.
We are. And if I remember correctly, you're actually remote, like you lead from a remote position.
Yep, exactly right. So I actually live in Denver, Colorado, and I go back to the Carolinas about once a month just to check in, be in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days and make sure everything's running smoothly. Then I come back out west.
So you brush up on your Southern accent while you're there.
If I ever had one. I mean, if anything, my Jersey accent comes out somehow. It makes no sense.
I get it. So what is your position there? What does a day look like a normal day or week for you in this remote operations position?
Yeah, so I do all of our inventory. So all of our ordering, maintaining our reorder thresholds, the quantity on hand, everything like that for the whole hospital. I do some HR stuff. I do all of our payroll, managing employee benefits, and developing and fine-tuning like processes and procedures and things to help everything run smoothly.
Nice. So you wear a lot of hats, and I imagine that given like your past experience too, like having this view of the veterinary scene that might be a little different from, say, a technician or a veterinarian or a practice owner. I'd love for you to speak to some of the things you're seeing, like top challenges in the veterinary industry in terms of leadership. What do you think are some of the big challenges they're facing? Yeah.
So honestly, and this is true for pretty much all animal hospitals, I think, across the country, maybe across the world, but hiring, finding help right now is a huge struggle. There are just not as many candidates as there used to be. And I don't know why. And that's for veterinarians, that's for techs, nurses, receptionists, assistants. It's all positions that we're seeing this. And that's probably our biggest challenge right now.
Yep. I've definitely heard this before. So around the hiring, when you think about how to solve that problem, do you have any ideas? Because this is such a big nut to crack. I wonder.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say, right? Because if we had the answers, then we wouldn't be having the problem. Definitely though, as far as once you find people to interview, right? I think making sure that person that you're interviewing it's not as important that they have all the skills that you're looking for, right? Because we can train people to have these skills. You can train them to do all sorts of different technical tasks and to do things the way your hospital does things versus wherever they were coming from. But you can't change a person's personality. So it's really important to find someone that's a good fit with the rest of your staff, with the rest of your team.
I love what you're saying. I think the buzzword often is like company culture and
no, that word like has weird connotations sometimes, but there's some truth to it for sure.
Yeah. What I've been observing, and I'd say this doesn't apply strictly to veterinary medicine. I think I see it across many different industries, but that lots of companies are built so quickly. Like it might start off with just, I'm a single veterinarian. I have my one technician and one receptionist, and here we go. And then there's such a demand for your service that the company starts to grow in a way that's just about the actual service. Like here, I just want to help the animals, schedule the thing, get it done. And there's not time for developing staff or putting a lot of effort into hiring, or even like, how do we attract talent? If I was a veterinarian, I'm not trained in that. I don't have time for that. And do I really have a budget to hire somebody onto my team that will do those things? And I think that people for instance, your position, that might be something that's hired on down the road where they're like, okay, now we're humming along and we have some extra money in the budget. Let's bring somebody in to kind of take care of helping with these bigger tasks. But I think there's sort of a lack of intentionality in developing a company from the people up. It's like an afterthought.
Yeah. And it's actually funny that you use that entire example because that's basically how Baxter came about. So when we first opened, I've actually been with Baxter off and on since its inception back in 2011. So when we first opened, it was just the owner, the parks owner veterinarian, me, one other employee, and that was it. And, from there, we've now grown to 30, 38 support staff, right? 3 people on the management team, 6 doctors, and 2 assistant managers on the pet care side as well. So, and because we do boarding and daycare and grooming, right? So we grew into this whole giant practice, which is fantastic. But I came back over to the veterinary industry from other ventures that I had gone and done because the owner, Dr. Beatty, had said, hey, we could use your leadership skills. Can you come in and help us with all sorts of things? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Why not? So came back on and I'm really glad I did, but there were definitely challenges that we have since overcome. And that was back in 2020 in the summer. Mm-hmm. And since then, there were things that had to be adjusted, like the way inventory was being done, lack of inter-office communication, which I think can happen really easily. And especially in a big practice, because you have that physical disconnect between the front of house and back of house and all that. So it's just, and then you have walkie-talkies and all this stuff, but a lot of times things that you are trying to convey don't get conveyed clearly. So fixing the communication, that was a big thing. And going back to what I said before, the team, making sure everyone was cohesive and getting along and that everyone was a good fit for what we were trying to do.
Oh, I'm going to pin communication to come back to because that's super important to keep going down this rabbit trail, bunny hole, whatever the heck we're going to call it, trail of people. I would love to know your perspective on this one. When we're faced with this thing of, let's say, here's my company and I have these 6 staff, let's say technicians or something. I have my 6 techs. I could use 8. I'm already short staffed. One of those technicians definitely does not fit in with our company culture. Maybe they lack maturity. They don't have any desire to grow. They're just sort of there to get a paycheck and do the bare minimum. They've expressed that that's all they're going to do. And I feel stuck in this position of, sure, I'd love to be able to let that person go to move on to something else and to replace that person with someone who really wants to be here. But how do I do it when I'm already short-staffed and then I don't have the time to put out the feelers for candidates? Right. I see this often. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that. Is it a mindset shift that needs to happen, or?
Well, with who? With that team member or with the practice owner and the management team?
Yeah, let's say the management team that's making the decisions about how to let go of staff or keep staff, or, how do we really, that the person that's basically the solutions generator that has to make decisions. Right. What do you think they need to do?
That is a really tough one. And that's a conundrum I feel like all of us have been through. In my opinion, I feel like if that person is bringing down the morale of the entire team, mm-hmm. and they're affecting the productivity of the whole team and just, the whole day-to-day is becoming a challenge for everyone because of one person, then I'm of the mindset, I know we're going to be more short-staffed, but it's probably better to let that person go and, find a better fit so that we can then regroup, and it would take a strong team though to do that as well. Cause they also have to understand hey, I know we're short. We're going to be even more short. And that's when, as a manager, you may have to also jump in and help on the floor, which I do frequently when I'm in town and my cohorts that are actually there do all the time. But that's really going to solve the problem faster than waiting and saying, well, we can't lose another person, but then they keep dragging other people down. And then you might have some of your really good people wanting to leave because then they're not happy.
I really appreciate your perspective. I think I know a little bit about you and your personality type. I know that you are more comfortable with risk probably than the average bear, and you're not, right. You don't shy away from a challenge. And I think that's a wonderful quality to have in a leader. And
thank you.
And I think what you remind me of in your idea for a solution is that Band-Aids, like keeping a really suboptimal employee around just to fill the hole, it's like a Band-Aid, And when you remove that person out of the equation and you feel that pinch of being short-staffed, like, oh my gosh, this is hard. We have to we have to act now. It sort of turns the heat up on making a decision and taking action faster to say, right. Well, one thing we could do is we need to scale back the practice for a hot minute until we find staff. And that's painful to know. I'm going to decrease revenue, serve fewer animals. You have to make an announcement, maybe publicly, that, hey, we're going to cut our hours back. But that's maybe what needs to be done to protect the current staff and keep them healthy. And then I, as a manager, maybe I have to dedicate more time, have boundaries to not jump in and really focus on hiring. Like, we might have to make some painful decisions and cut back a little bit in order to grow. It's sort of like pruning a tree. Right. But by removing that person, that's the truth of the situation, because we're feeling the lack either way. I think we get comfort by having a certain number of bodies in an organization, but if they're really, like you said, bringing down the morale of the team or decreasing productivity, that's a net negative. That's not good.
Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you do try to avoid having to cut back on seeing patients and cut back on your business hours and all that, because that's still going to be a problem, right? If you start doing that. So the ideal situation, of course, is to be able to hire someone else right away. But then you run into another issue of, are you just hiring someone to have another body? Because you're going to run into the same problems. Yeah. So it's equally important during the interview process to make sure that you're really weeding out people that are going to be a good fit for your team. And like I was saying, they may not have all the skills that you initially want. But if they are open and willing to learn, then they're trainable, which is fantastic.
That is so important. Yeah. Are there any core elements that you really look for in a person when it comes to bringing on new staff?
Definitely positivity comes to mind first. You want a person that is going to bring more light into your office and not any, negativity. So that is probably number one important. During the interview process, someone that asks questions, and listens, and you can tell they're actively listening and engaging. That's really important as well. Like I said, core things that you're looking for in somebody.
Yes, I really appreciate that. And you've already led with that kind of growth mentality, people that are interested and willing to learn and they like to be developed. Man, that's such a wonderful trait to have. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. In any of the roles in a hospital, it's wonderful to have a person that has that mindset. So I'm curious too, along the culture line, like in your organization or in organizations that you've maybe worked for in the past as well. Do you have any thoughts on the kind of relationship between doctors, because they're very much looked up to, right? And how they operate in an organization and their relationship with maybe lead technicians and then tech assists all the way down the chain. And have you seen or have any stories about maybe veterinarians that have just shown up as wonderful leaders or mentors and how they've rallied the team, or the opposite? Oh man, let's see. Let me think. Dr. Beatty, who's the owner of Baxter, she really comes to mind first and foremost. She is always there, even though she's the owner of the practice. She's still, her and her husband, Dr. Doyle, they both own the practice, and they're both still, they see appointments all the time and everything. And Dr. Beatty is especially one to jump in and want to teach people that want to learn. So if anyone comes to her and they have questions, they want to learn more about the medical side of things or about a procedure that she's doing, she's going to take her time and explain it to them and show them all these things. It's really fantastic. She'll jump in and help train the assistants how to restrain a pet safely. And we also try to do everything fear-free in our practice. So, and, teaching that is sometimes a bit of a 180 from what people may be used to from another practice. So it's really cool that she is always willing to jump in and do that. And she's been that way since I've known her. I've known her since 2006 when we met, when she was an associate vet at a different practice and I was a tech there. It's such a cool journey to know somebody for that long, like the arc of their career. I had a similar experience when I was a technician. This is like, early 2000s. And there was a veterinarian that I worked for. It was in a small animal practice. I think they had 4 veterinarians. Oh. And there was one in particular, and he was kind of like a recent grad. He just had so much enthusiasm. And I remember he would agree to come in on a Sunday when we were closed if there were people that wanted to like learn things, like learn how to run the anesthesia.
Wow.
It was really neat to get that close, like really have more like that mentorship that I don't know if I would have gotten any other way. And it meant a lot, like having somebody in that position come in and spend the time with the technicians.
Oh, definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was good. He's a good guy. All right. So on the communication side, anything you want to mention there, or bring up in terms of, again, like leadership wise, what works, what doesn't work, thoughts on that?
I'll tell you what I did. And I would, if anyone else is interested in pursuing this for their practice, I would love to jump in and help them with it, because it was kind of a process, especially because our practice is so big. But that's the reason why I did this. I implemented Slack for our entire hospital. Dude, it's amazing. And I don't think a lot of people realize it's not just for offices. It can be used for anything. So implemented Slack, created a whole guide for it and everything. We have all different channels. It's especially helpful for my remote work. And this is part of how I made my job able to be remote. So whenever we get orders in, inventory orders, like you have your invoices and your packing slips, I have the team, when they check it in, they take a picture of that, they post it to an inventory documents channel on Slack. We have channels for practice management, or channels just for the doctors, just for the nurses, for the whole medical team, just so many different channels. And it has helped tremendously just running the whole practice. But also I think it's helped the camaraderie too, between everyone. Because we have like the random channel too. Everyone can go in and be goofy, and sometimes they're goofy in the other channels too, which is fun. And it has made just a night and day difference.
Oh, we gotta share a little bit here. I had a similar experience where I was working as director of operations for a mental health facility. And when I came into the position, I'd previously been working for the same company as a therapist. And I noticed how I was so exhausted with all of the emails. I was so over 8 million, and you can't keep track of any of them. It's just a like tidal wave of emails all the time, and then text messages so I was like, we're doing Slack, because I had experienced Slack when I'd worked in startups. These companies are building and they're growing fast, and Slack was amazing for keeping it organized and growing with the company. So I did something similar to you. It's just like creating the correct channels that make sense for the various tasks and operational functions that need to happen. So if you're thinking about a certain area of communication, you go to that particular channel, and it all lives there forever. You don't have to have your inbox clogged up. You don't have to have your text message clogged up. You can share documents, all sorts of things that can live there. And the hurdle that I ran into, and I wonder if you felt this, was people's fear and phobia of like a new technology, just feeling like, I don't want another thing, and I'm going to be bad at it. And what if I mess it up? And it felt very overwhelming. So I like integrated them very slowly. Let's just start with one little channel. Hi, and how to just play around and experiment before you feel like you have to be adequate at it. Did you experience anything like that?
Well, I definitely experienced the resistance to it. Right. And it's like that with any change that we try to implement, we being anyone in leadership, I feel like everyone is so resistant to change, and it was just a new thing, and it was scary. And especially, our team members that are in the older generations, right? Millennials and Gen Zs, like we get it. We're good. We're like, okay, it's more stuff on our phone. Okay, got it. Although I will say I use it on the computer way more than I do on my phone. The desktop app is fantastic for it. But yeah, I definitely felt that resistance. However, I was not as kind, I guess, as you were, to just do like, here's just one little baby channel and you can just play around with it. I was like, nah, here's your channels. Here's your guide, how to use it. Come to me if you have any questions, but we're starting this today.
Yes.
Because that's just me, man. I just want to like have everyone dive right in. Like, I didn't tell them that it wasn't going to be wrong, like whatever they did, but it was fine if it was. Like, if you don't know how to use it right away, that's totally cool. But I still want you to use it.
Right. Yeah, it takes a lot of redirection because I remember initially people would still continue to text me or email me, and I would say,
Right.
Please redirect exactly what you did into the correct Slack channel. Thank you. Yeah. Over and over. It's like training, any kind of behavioral training. It just takes a lot of reinforcement.
Yep.
I agree with you.
Like in an animal hospital, though, in a veterinary practice, there's not as many inter-office emails. So it was more getting people from just verbally telling you something or writing it on a sticky note that gets lost or thrown away and being like, no, put this on Slack. Yeah. So that, we have it and it's not going to get lost. And then I can look at it later. And then we mark it off with a little green check mark when it's done. It's so great.
This is fabulous. Can you give me just a couple, because I'm dying with curiosity. I want to be on your Slack channel now. Can you share a few of the types of channels that you use most frequently?
Yeah. So I am frequently on the inventory back orders channel and inventory documents channel, checking those things in. The back orders channel is something that they are all supposed to be checking when they want to put something on the order list. That's not something we typically carry. And it's a special order, for a patient. That way they can see, oh, wait, the reason why we don't have this is because it's on back order, or, oh man, she's not even going to be able to get this because she already told me it's on back order. So that actually was a really important channel to put on there. Practice management, of course, on that one a lot. And probably the medical team channel. So we've got medical team, which is going to be all doctors, nurses, receptionists, and assistants, everyone on the medical side. Mm-hmm. Then we have that broken out even more. So the nurses have their own channel, the vet assistants have their own channel, the doctors, the CSRs, which is what our receptionists are, the pet care team, that's all broken out, but that's more for them to be able to communicate more concisely with each other in their team. So I'm more on the global channels, and then like the practice management's a private channel. And that's the nice thing too. You can make some of them private. So you only have certain people in there. We have a hiring channel where we can discuss candidates or job posts that we want to make. So that's really helpful.
Oh, I love too that having the private one is this is just for leadership or certain kinds of conversations. Yeah. So I'm going to pin this then and say, if people are interested in getting help with considering setting something like this up in their practice, reach out to you. I might reach out to you. I'm working with a practice right now that I think could really benefit from something like this. Awesome. And I'm not like a making a guide kind of gal. I'm an implement the guide for you kind of gal. Yeah. So I love that you've already taken all these steps and put something like a protocol together. That's very cool.
Dude, I love making guides for stuff. I tell you what, so another thing, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but another thing that we have are price books, which I'm sure places have these, right? It's a binder or a folder, and you got your general quotes in there so that when you're on the phone with a client, and they're asking about certain things like a puppy visit, you can be like, okay, so their first visit is going to be about this much. And it's right there in your little price book. I have all the pages of our price book on Google Docs so that anytime we make a change to the prices, I just go in there, change the prices on it, print it to the clinic, and then they distribute to the price books. So that's always staying updated.
Google everything is I'm just in love with. I'm a spreadsheet girl. I love spreadsheets. Same. I love docs as well. And it's so fabulous. You can just update it very easily. And I like that's another element of communication. How do we really communicate with clients so that they have the right expectation when they come in the door? So I've worked with emergency vet hospitals. And I think that's often where a lot of conflict and stress happens, that they come in the door, there's no discussion because everything's fast and furious about what might happen financially in this situation. And then when that conversation finally happens, everybody's adrenaline is through the roof and there's a higher degree of conflict then. And it's really hard for the frontline staff because sometimes they don't even know their hands are tied. What can they really do at that point? So I think that something like that too could be really helpful for communicating as they're walking in the door, just to have the expectations really clear.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
It also goes under, so the other thing that we were going to talk about was organization. I am huge on organization, and that all ties in, right? Just having everything all in one spot. Google Drive is fantastic for that. We've been pulling a lot of important documents off of our server, because it's only accessible from the desktop of all the computers in there to the drive. That way, if people just need to even check something real quick, they can. And it's super accessible. You don't have to search a bunch of different folders for it. It's right there.
I agree. It's this is something where I could see a whole course being made for veterinary practices that's like how to use the Google Suite and Slack to organize your company.
Oh yeah, please stay tuned for that.
Yeah, you're on it.
Yeah. All this sorts of stuff. Yeah, working on it.
So I feel like what I love about this conversation is that we're talking about the nitty gritty parts of being a leader. I think that some people think leading is just like, I stand up and I say things and you do it. Woo! It's no, not at all. I mean, there's this aspect of really caring about your people. That's the company culture piece of looking at how we develop a team that really supports one another, that is here for a common mission and goal, that keeps the energy up, that has positivity, that moves forward. And then all of these organizational components, it's sort of like a wrapper that keeps it all safe and contained. I see so many organizations that they may have a great team, wonderful staff, but they are running on fumes and burned out and scattered because there's not organization in their company. They're, things are scattered. You can't find things. People get frustrated with each other. We're snippy. People get blamed. And really, the only thing we can blame is a lack of organization. Yep. And there's certain people who have the brains that can see how to develop organization. And I think you're one of them, and companies need that. Yeah, right.
Someone who's just kind of like OCD and has to have everything organized. Yes. Hello, that's me.
Yeah. Well, I always say that our superpowers can be our kryptonite. It's just like, how are they being used for good or evil?
Right. Exactly.
Spin our neuroses into something that helps other people. Yay.
Yep. But you're absolutely right, dude. Like that's what is holding everything together is things being organized. And that way, like you were saying, people get frustrated and snippy and all because it's stressful. If you can't find things and you don't know like how you're supposed to do something because there's no protocol that you can see there and you don't know where these fluids are and you need them for this patient, like it's just a mess. It's stressful.
It is.
So you don't realize, but just having things organized eliminates so much of that underlying stress.
Right. And all that energy that you'd burn off figuring things out, sorting it again, doing it over and over, could be used towards actually performing better at your job or enjoying it more, just the things you're actually there to do. It's such an important element of a company and growing a company. The fact that you've been with your organization since it was a little baby organization, you've gotten to like scale those operational components with it. That's part of the success of a company, that when you have those organizational components from the ground up, it's like a sturdy foundation it can grow on.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So coming down the home stretch here. Ooh, I mean, I really wish we had like 2 hours because there's so many different areas we could cover. Yeah. I wonder for you.
Another, we'll just get together another time.
We're going to do that. That's fabulous. And we should bring our pets in next time. My cat is sleeping right there. And I saw your dog.
My dog walk by.
He's just like roaming around.
Yeah.
He's probably looking
like, mom's still doing stuff. All right, fine. He just goes back to sleep.
No cuddles right now.
Yeah.
So for you, how about 3 maybe or so, your top 3 favorite parts of your position right now?
Oh man, I knew you were going to ask me something tough. Okay. So I want to say that number 1 is probably the fact that I get to have a hand in everything in all parts of the business, because it's like a giant puzzle, and I get to put all the pieces together. So I do really like that. And adjusting the pieces so they fit even better. You know what I mean? So that's really cool. Definitely, this is going to be kind of cheesy, but I do love all the people that I work with. And again, being the operations director, I work with everyone in the whole practice in one way or another. I don't talk to all of them all the time, but at some point, usually in a month, I talk to everyone in the practice and get to see how everyone's doing and help their different areas and all of that, which is really wonderful. And the third one is, of course, helping the patients, creating and perfecting processes that in the end make us have better patient care, better client interactions and all that. Cause that's really what we're all there for.
So true at the end of the day, right? Yeah. Like that's what lights us up. That's why I get into this industry.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. If somebody were listening today, because I feel like a big theme that's come up is I'm pretending myself to be a listener, and I might find myself feeling like, gosh, yeah, I'm aware that I could use better communication and organizational aspects in my company, but I feel kind of overwhelmed. Do you have any kind of like kindergarten level starter points or maybe tips for somebody who's really feeling like they're new to this, where they might begin?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because once you starting to realize like, hey, I need to improve upon communication and organization, which sound like very basic concepts. Once you start digging into it, you're like, oh man, this is actually more involved than I thought. Mm-hmm. So I can totally understand someone being overwhelmed by it. I would say start with whatever you feel like is the biggest pain point, right? So let's just say if it's your inventory, right? You need to get that more organized. Okay. How about, does everything in the hospital have its place? And does everyone know where that place is? Mm-hmm. Right? Because if they don't, then everything's a mess. Mm-hmm. So here's a tip of what I did with that is I created an inventory locator as a Google Sheet. And it's still a daunting task because it's hard for it not to be, but the nice thing is you can kind of chip away at it, right? You don't have to do it all at once, but you go through and you make a Google Sheet and you put everything on there that you have, that you carry, stuff that you sell and stuff that you use as well, like cotton balls and Q-tips, all that stuff. And then the other part of it is you need to label where they are. So the cabinets and the drawers, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went through the whole hospital. Every cabinet and drawer is labeled with a letter and a number. Yep. Goes on the inventory locator. Once you get it done, again, it might take a while, but once you have that done, everyone knows where everything is and where everything goes when you get new inventory in. That is so huge for organizing your practice.
Such good advice too. Start with the biggest pain point, because resolving that biggest pain point creates such relief. So just say, hey, if you're overwhelmed right now with some aspect of what we're talking about, just focus in on the one that's really the most important, the one single thing, and then put it on your list of things we're going to sort and just slowly chip away at it. And that's
the key.
Yeah.
Just doing it slowly. You don't have to dive right in.
Mm-mm. Nope. I mean, you've been living with this mess for however long. It's not like, and I would say what I would follow up with if I were advising people, I would say, reach out to people who've already done it. Learn from the masters. Don't create something from, we always want to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just, we are here to support each other. That's what this is all about. We're all in this together for the same reason. So reach out. And on that note, would you like to share how you'd like for people to contact you if they want to know more, they want to pick your brain or steal one of your genius models you've already made? How should they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn would probably be the easiest way to find me. Okay. I was about to say you can also email me, but I'm like, it's going to get lost in my inbox. Yeah, do LinkedIn.
Because they can't Slack you yet. So
exactly.
So what I'll do is I will put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so people can find you. And Sheera, just want to say thank you so much for spending the time today with us, for being on the podcast. We'll definitely hook up for another episode so we can just get down and dirty about another topic that's so important to this industry. I really appreciate your time.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.